Emily Ward pulled her thin jacket tighter as the November wind sliced down the alley behind Mason's diner. She and her little sister Sophie had been sleeping there for the past week, huddled under a faded blanket, sharing whatever warmth their tired, anxious bodies could hold on to. Life on the streets had carved a quiet toughness into Emily, the kind that made a 15-year-old feel far older than she should. But tonight, she just felt cold, exhausted, and painfully vulnerable. Sophie shivered beside her, teeth chattering. "Do you think they'll let us sit inside later?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. "We'll figure something out," Emily murmured, brushing a strand of damp hair off Sophie's forehead. She always tried to sound calm, even when fear pressed heavy on her chest. Fear of being caught, fear of being separated, fear of tomorrow. Then footsteps echoed in the alley. Emily stiffened instantly, pulling Sophie behind her. A woman in a county jacket approached, steady, purposeful, scanning the alley like she was searching for someone important. "Are you Emily Ward?" the woman asked, sounding uncertain. Emily's heart stumbled. "Who's asking?" "My name is Dana Brooks. I'm with the county probate office. I've been trying to reach you for months." She held out a sealed envelope, the paper already damp from the drizzle. "This is regarding your grandmother, Evelyn Ward." Emily froze. The name hit like a faint memory. Pine trees, warm bread, soft humming, things she'd buried deep. "She passed away 2 years ago," the woman continued gently. "And you and your sister are her last living heirs." "Heirs?" Emily let out a weak, disbelieving laugh. "She didn't have anything." Dana shook her head. "She owned property up in the Appalachians. A house, land, all legally transferred to you and your sister." For a moment, the world went strangely quiet. Sophie clutched her hand, wide-eyed and trembling. "A house? For them?" Emily's voice cracked. "Why now?" "It took time to locate you, but the property is yours." The woman gave a sympathetic look, part sorrow, part admiration for their resilience. "And there are notes, things your grandmother left behind." Emily stared at the envelope. Heavy, important, a lifeline wrapped in damp paper. Finally, she took it. The moment her fingers closed around it, something inside her shifted. Something fragile, like hope trying to breathe again after being buried too long. "We're going," she whispered to Sophie. "We're leaving tonight." And for the first time in months, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a door, a real one. The bus dropped them off at a lonely turnout where the pavement ended and the gravel road began. The Appalachians rose ahead, gray-blue ridges stacked like sleepy giants, the air crisp enough to sting their cheeks. Emily tightened her grip on Sophie's hand as they started the uphill walk. Every step felt heavy, a mix of nervous excitement and the quiet fear that whatever waited up there might not be real. Sophie gazed around with wide, curious eyes. "Do you remember it? Grandma's place?" "Not really," Emily admitted softly. "I was little. Mom took us away before I turned 6. The memories she did have felt more like sensations than pictures. Warm light through old curtains, the earthy smell of firewood, the sound of someone humming a gentle, reassuring tune. Fragile memories, half broken but comforting. The gravel crunched under their shoes as the road curved between tall pines. Squirrels darted across branches. A single hawk circled above, its cry sharp and lonely. There was something strangely honest about the mountain air, cool, blunt, and impossibly quiet after months of city noise. When the house finally came into view, both girls stopped. It stood at the edge of a ridge, the roof sagging like a tired shoulder, the porch half collapsed, the paint peeled into soft, ghostly flakes. A place forgotten by time, yet stubbornly alive. Emily felt an unexpected ache, sadness mixed with something tender, like the house recognized them. "That's it?" Sophie whispered. "Yeah," Emily breathed. "That's ours." They stepped cautiously inside. Dust hung in the air like pale threads. The floor groaned under their weight but held steady. A cast-iron stove sat in the corner, rusted but loyal. On a small table lay a faded quilt and a tin mug. Simple things, but arranged with such human care that Emily felt her throat tighten. The house didn't feel empty, it felt waiting. Sophie wandered toward an old rocking chair, touching its worn arm gently. "Do you think she missed us?" Emily swallowed, her voice quiet and vulnerable. "I think she hoped we'd find our way back." She moved into the kitchen, brushing dust off the counter. A sudden tug in her chest made her open the top drawer. Inside lay a folded piece of yellowed paper, her grandmother's handwriting looping across it with shaky conviction. If you're reading this, then the mountain hasn't given up on you. Neither have I. A startled breath escaped her. Before she could read further, Sophie's voice echoed from the doorway, tight, trembling, almost disbelieving. Emily, there's something outside. Emily rushed to the window. Through the cracked glass, a large, aging horse stood near the broken porch. Its coat chestnut, its eyes deep, watchful, almost human. Not wild, not lost. As if it had been waiting for them. The horse didn't move when Emily stepped onto the creaking porch. He simply watched her, calm, patient, almost deliberate. His chestnut coat was weathered, streaked with gray, and his eyes held a kind of quiet intelligence that made her breath hitch. Sophie stood behind her, gripping the doorframe. Emily, do you think he belonged to Grandma? I think so, Emily whispered, feeling something warm flicker in her chest. She mentioned a horse once. Sawyer. The name rolled off her tongue like a memory waking up. Sawyer took one slow step backward, then another. Never turning away, just guiding. Beckoning. Sophie tugged Emily's sleeve. Is he trying to show us something? Emily hesitated. The sky was dimming into a soft Appalachian dusk, the air turning crisp and still. Following a horse into the woods wasn't exactly the safest thing two homeless teenagers could do. But something in Sawyer's steady, soulful eyes pushed past her fear. It felt purposeful, intentional. Grab your jacket, Emily murmured. We're going. They followed Sawyer down a narrow trail cutting through tall pines and damp earth. Twigs snapped under their boots. The forest smelled of moss, forgotten rain, and something else. Something metallic and cold that made Emily's stomach twist with uneasy curiosity. Sawyer finally stopped at a small clearing. At its center stood a stone shed, old as the mountain itself, with a crooked wooden door marked by a giant red county warning sign. Condemned, unsafe structure, do not enter. Sophie swallowed hard. Why would Grandma have a building like this? Emily's heartbeat quickened. I don't know. Driven by a mix of fear, bravery, and a strange longing to understand the grandmother she barely knew, Emily pushed on the door. The hinges groaned, the smell of damp wood rushing out like breath released after years of silence. Inside was darkness, heavy, cold, and suffocating. Emily clicked on her phone's flashlight. The beam cut through dust motes, landing on crates stacked along the walls, each stamped with the faded logo of a mining company. Old, abandoned, forgotten. Sophie stepped inside, her voice trembling with cautious wonder. Emily, what is all this? Emily pried open the lid of the nearest crate. It cracked loudly, the sound echoing off the stone like a warning. Inside, wrapped in old canvas, lay metal cylinders, smooth, heavy, marked with numbers and coordinates. Not random numbers, coordinates of their grandmother's property. Emily felt the air thicken around her. These are core samples, from underground. Sophie looked up, frightened and confused. But why hide them? Before Emily could answer, Sawyer snorted, a sharp, urgent sound. Then a branch snapped in the woods, too close, too heavy. Someone, or something, was watching. Emily grabbed Sophie's hand, pulse surging with protective fear. Come on, she whispered. We're not alone out here. Emily didn't stop looking over her shoulder until Sawyer had guided them safely back to the house. The forest felt different now, no longer just quiet, but watching, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath. That snapped branch, that heavy presence. Emily couldn't shake the haunting, anxious feeling settling deep inside her ribs. We have to show someone, she said the next morning, packing the core sample into her backpack with shaky hands. The metal cylinder felt heavier than it should, heavy with truth, heavy with danger. Sophie, still pale, nodded. Someone who will believe us. They walked down the mountain into the small town nestled in the valley below. Old storefronts lined Main Street, barber shops, antique stores, a diner with a flickering neon sign. Towns that look sleepy often hide tired secrets, Emily thought. They stopped at the public library, the safest place Emily could think of. The librarian, Mrs. Dalton, silver hair, soft voice, kind eyes, listened as Emily explained everything, her vulnerable voice balancing between fear and determination. Mrs. Dalton studied the cylinder closely. I haven't seen one of these in decades, she murmured. Then she looked up, face tightening with recognition. I know someone who might help. She returned moments later with Mr. Harris, a retired geologist with gentle but penetrating eyes. When he held the core sample to the light, his expression shifted from curiosity to alarm. This isn't from company land, he said in a grave, steady tone. These coordinates sit directly under your grandmother's property. They had no right to drill there. Emily's stomach dropped. Sophie's hand gripped hers. They stole from her? Sophie asked, voice trembling. They sure did, Harris replied, and they hid it. Before they could process the revelation, the library's front door chimed. A man in a dark jacket stepped inside. He wasn't looking for books. He was scanning the room, searching. Emily's breath hitched. It was the same man from the woods. She knew it instantly, his cold, assessing stare, the way he moved with quiet, unsettling confidence. He approached them slowly, offering a strained, too polite smile. Emily Ward? He asked. My name is Daniel. I represent Fulton Energy. I think we can talk about arrangements. Emily's pulse hammered. He knew their names. He knew who they were. He lowered his voice, calm but chilling. A cash settlement. Very generous. All you have to do is hand over what you found and forget the rest. Sophie stepped closer to Emily, frightened. Emily's voice shook, but she forced the words out, defiant, protective. No, we're not selling anything. Daniel's smile vanished. His eyes hardened. Then you're making trouble you can't afford. Mrs. Dalton suddenly rose from behind the desk. They're children, she said sharply, and I've already called an attorney. Daniel's jaw tightened. Emily exhaled shakily. It was the first moment she realized they weren't completely alone, but it was also the moment she understood. Fulton Energy wouldn't stop. Not now. Not when the truth was finally surfacing. Emily barely slept that night. Every sound, the shifting old walls, the sigh of winter wind through the pines, even Sawyer's soft steps outside, felt sharper, heavier, like the mountain was warning her that the fight wasn't over. But by morning, something inside her had changed. The fear was still there, yes. But so was a quiet, determined courage that surprised even her. She and Sophie returned to town with Mrs. Dalton, heading straight to the small white house on Birch Street, with a crooked sign out front. Harper, attorney at law. No appointment needed. Harper was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed but warm-hearted, the kind of woman who looked like she understood both toughness and tenderness. She listened without interrupting as Emily laid everything out, the shed, the crates, the core samples, the man who tried to buy their silence. Harper tapped the metal cylinder thoughtfully. Well, she said, Fulton Energy won't want this getting out, but that's exactly why they're scared. Scared? Sophie echoed. Believe me, Harper said, a resolute smile forming. Powerful people panic when kids with the truth show up. What followed were weeks of paperwork, sworn statements, and late-night meetings in Harper's tiny office. Mr. Harris documented the geology findings with meticulous, science-backed clarity. Mrs. Dalton found old council notes proving Evelyn Ward had tried, desperately, to sound the alarm years ago. Even a retired drill technician came forward, offering a fragile handwritten ledger showing off the record drilling entries. Piece by piece, the truth found its voice. But Fulton Energy pushed back hard. Their lawyers sent thick stacks of denials. A black SUV was spotted near the mountain road more than once. And Daniel, the man with the cold eyes, kept showing up in quiet, unsettling places. Watching, waiting, pressing. Emily held Sophie's hand every time they walked home from town. She felt responsible, protective, fiercely determined. They had been invisible their whole lives, but not anymore. Then one snowy afternoon, Harper burst through the door of the old mountain house holding a folder. They blinked, she said breathlessly. They're offering a settlement, a big one. Emily's stomach fluttered with both hope and dread. How big? Life-changing, Harper replied gently. Enough to rebuild the house, enough to take care of you both for years. She paused, her voice softening. And no gag order. You'll be free to tell the world what happened. Emily stared at the fireplace, embers glowing with warm, amber light. Part of her wanted justice in a courtroom, wanted the whole town to know her grandmother wasn't crazy, wanted Fulton Energy to stand facing the truth. But another part, The tired, protective, vulnerable part just wanted her and Sophie to finally be safe. Sophie touched her arm. Emily, Grandma tried her best. Maybe this is our turn. Emily took a slow breath, her eyes stinging with conflicted emotion. Okay, she whispered, we'll sign. And with that signature, something heavy, something generational, finally lifted. Months later, the house was transformed. The roof repaired, the windows replaced. Sawyer had a sturdy barn, warm and peaceful. The condemned shed became a small memorial with a metal plaque. Evelyn Ward, keeper of the mountain's truth school kids visited. Teachers told her story, and the town slowly rewrote the way it remembered her. On a quiet winter evening, Emily and Sophie sat on the rebuilt porch, sipping hot cocoa, watching snow drift across the yard like drifting feathers. Emily, Sophie asked softly, do you think Grandma knows? Emily smiled, eyes glistening with tender certainty. Yeah, she murmured. I think the whole mountain knows. Sophie leaned against her shoulder. Sawyer grazed peacefully nearby. For the first time in their lives, the future didn't feel frightening. It felt wide open, honest, theirs. Emily looked out at the quiet woods and whispered, almost to herself, we're home. Question for the audience. If you were in Emily's place, would you fight for justice or take the settlement to protect your family first? Call to subscribe. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more emotional and inspiring journeys, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming stories.